Your Tompkins County legislature votes in favor of the New York State Act and votes to restrict hunting with rifles in that county as infringing on the Second Amendment. The NRA has endorsed Congressman Reed. How do you respond?
Here's another case where this is, well, first off, this is about Second Amendment rights. I need to say, I am strongly for Second Amendment rights. I believe in people's constitutional rights, and it beginning and ending, and I will tell you, I'm opposed to the SAFE Act. I voted against the SAFE Act. I signed a pledge in front of 75 people in Chautauqua County against the SAFE Act, and my opponent knows it, and so does the newspaper. You don't have to take my word for it. The Iowa Star-Gazette and Infantry Journal, the headline, Reed was wrong on opponent's gun stance. This is from last week's debate. Robertson voted against SAFE Act in Tompkins County. Again, I'm tired of being misrepresented. And you know what the trouble is? If Tom Reed is misrepresenting something so clear as how I voted, when I've said it over and over again, and he knows, what else might he be misrepresenting? What else might not be quite true? This is something where I really am, it makes me quite angry, I guess you can tell.
Well, let's just be clear, the Tompkins County legislative vote. There were 2 votes, Martha. There were 2 votes. One vote that you cite all the time that you were opposed, you voted against the SAFE Act. But there was a prior vote where you had an opportunity to show that opposition to the SAFE Act, and you voted in favor of that resolution that supported the SAFE Act. So you're trying to have it both ways. And to me, that's not accurate. That's not being 100% open and honest with the constituency. And I think our records are clear. I have been a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I'm a lifelong member of the NRA, lifelong member of SCOPE, and got the SCOPE A rating, NRA A rating, and have stood with the Second Amendment through and through as we have taken this issue on, not only at the federal level, but also at the state level. And we're going to be consistent and clear with you going forward. When it comes to our Second Amendment rights, I believe they are constitutionally, individually guaranteed fundamental rights that need to be stood for. Now, when it comes to things like gun violence and getting into the issue that really we should be talking about, when it comes to parents that have been in my office that I have talked to that have lost children as a result of those horrific situations, as places in Colorado and Connecticut, we should be talking about how we're going to improve mental health delivery in America. It's the person behind the gun. But what they want to do is continue to go after our Second Amendment constitutional rights, and it's just not right. And I care about those rights, and we continue to fight to stand for those rights as we go forward. Now let's be also clear. One of the biggest issues we face when it comes to gun violence is inner city gun violence. And what are we dealing with it there? We have policies that are promoting and not holding people accountable when they commit a crime with a weapon. I firmly believe if you're involved in a drug deal and you use a gun, yeah, you know what? You need to go to jail, and you need to sit in jail and make sure that you never get a gun again because you violated the privilege and the right that that Second Amendment represents for all of us, and you should be held accountable for it.
There you go again, Tom, misrepresenting my record. A procedural, meaningless vote prior to the real vote is not the real vote. The real vote is I voted against the SAFE Act. I signed a pledge that we should repeal the SAFE Act. I think we should agree that we agree on the SAFE Act, and we can talk about all the things we disagree on. Let me talk about mental health cuts. My opponent says he's all for mental health services. It's too bad that he voted to cut them numerous times. The sequester, those mindless across-the-board cuts, have done real damage to community mental health services, to drug and alcohol, substance abuse treatment, to suicide prevention, even veterans benefits. My opponent has voted to cut benefits for veterans seeking suicide prevention treatment, seeking mental health care. Tom, you can't have it both ways. You can't stand up here when you're not raising your hand to vote and say you're all for mental health services, and when it's time to actually vote, you cut the funding over and over again.
My opponent Martha just said something that I hope she really adheres to. When she talks about procedural, meaningless votes, what she refers to often in these votes are what they call a motion to recommit in Washington, D.C. You know what those are? Meaningless procedural votes that are politically motivated, partisan attacks that we have consistently always voted down because all it is a political game. What we're talking about, Martha, when it comes to our Second Amendment, is comparing our records. Comparing our records. And I'll tell you, when you look at what the NRA has done, reviewed us and gave us that A rating, when Scope reviewed our records and gave you, my opponent, an F rating, I think there's a clear contrast between the two of us. And when you ban rifle hunting, I will tell you, deer hunting season is right around the corner. And when you fundamentally change our hunting rights, that is a fundamental change to our way of life that my opponent represents with the extreme agenda she's trying to bring to Washington, D.C. I don't think that's right, and I think there's a clear contrast here for you to choose between.